We're beginning the story of how Krishna marries Rukmini. Verses 16 and 17. I'll read the translation. O hero among the Kurus, the Supreme Lord himself, Govinda, married Bhishmaka's daughter Vaidabhi, who was a direct expansion of the goddess of fortune. The Lord did this by her desire, and in the process he beat down Shalva and other kings who took Shishupal's side. Indeed, as everyone watched, Sri Krishna took Rukmini, just as Garuda boldly stole nectar from the demigods. Indeed, as everyone watched, Sri Krishna took Rukmini, just as Garuda boldly stole nectar from the demigods. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Jiva Goswami gives the following profound comments on these two verses. The words Shriyo Matram indicate that beautiful Rukmini is a direct expansion of the eternal goddess of fortune. Therefore, she is worthy to be the bride of the personality of Godhead. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, chapter 5, verse 56, Shri Akanta Kanta Parama Purusha. In the spiritual world, all the female lovers are goddesses of in the spiritual world, all the female lovers are goddesses of fortune, and the male lover is the Supreme Personality. Thus, Srila Jiva Goswami explains, Srimati Rukmi Devi is a plenary portion of Srimati Radharani. The Kartika Mahatmya section of the Padma Purana states, Kaishore Gopa Kanyas Ta Yovane Raja Kanyakaha. In childhood, Sri Krishna enjoyed with the daughters of cowherd men, and in his adolescence, he enjoyed with the daughters of kings. Similarly, in the Skanda Purana, we find this statement, Rukmini Dwara Vatyam Tu Radha Vrindavane Vane. Rukmini is as in Dwarka what Radha is in the forest of Vrindavan. The term Swayamvare here means by one's own choice. Although the word often refers to a formal Vedic ceremony in which an aristocratic girl may select her own husband, here it indicates the informal and indeed unprecedented events surrounding Krishna's marriage to Rukmini. In fact, Sri Krishna and Srimati Rukmini chose each other because of their eternal transcendental love. O hero among the Kurus, the Supreme Lord himself, Govinda, married Bhishmaka's daughter, Vaidabhi, who was a direct expansion of the goddess of fortune. The Lord did this by her desire, and in the process he beat down Shalva and other kings who took Shishupal's side. Indeed, as everyone watched, Sri Krishna took Rukmini just as Garuda boldly stole nectar from the demigods. Umaganati Mirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parichana Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakan Vitanscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Putale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Hastacha Deshatarani Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayati Guru Chatkripa Tamaham Vande Sri Guru Dinataranam. This is a significant turning point in the Leelas of the Lord that are described in this 10th canto. This is Krishna's first official marriage. And it's quite a story, actually. Beautiful story. Rukmini, by her brother's arrangement, her brother's Rukmi, her father is Rukma, she's Rukmini. So by her brother's arrangement, she was supposed to marry, excuse me, supposed to marry Shishupal. Shishupal was one of the most vociferous sworn enemies of Krishna. And Rukmini Rukmi was his friend. Actually, there's a story later in the 10th canto where Lord Balaram actually kills Rukmi. They're playing a game of chess, and Rukmi actually beats, by cheating, he beats Lord Balaram in a game of chess, and he laughs at him. He laughs at Lord Balaram and shows his teeth. So Lord Balaram stands up and kicks his teeth out, and he dies. He dies. And Prabhupada writes there in Krishna book, he said, and he was dead and gone. Rukmi was dead and gone. Shishupal, Shishupal is one of the incarnations. Dantavakra and Shishupal are one of the incarnations of Jai and Vijay. Jai and Vijay are the gatekeepers of Vaikuntha who offend the four Kumaras. When the four Kumaras come, they don't let them into Vaikuntha because they're naked, and they curse them. And Lord Vishnu gives them the choice of having 7 births as devotees or 3 births as demons. So they choose the births of demons, 3 births, and their first 2 births are as Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, and their second birth is as Dantavakya and Shishupal. I thought that's another part. Thank you, sir. I have some in my pocket. This is the packet you gave me on Sunday. I really don't know what this is. This won't clear up. I've had this ever since that virus. I got end of March. Anyway, he was always insulting Krishna, and I can't remember the reason why, but Krishna had made a vow to Shishupal's mother that although he was so insulting and such a rascal, that Krishna would spare him, wouldn't kill him. So Krishna made a vow that he wouldn't kill him unless he insulted him 100 times. And he said, if he insults me 100 times, I'll kill him. So it just kept going on, and this was in public. He would always insult Krishna in public. So the final insult was when, at the Rajasuya sacrifice, when Yudhishthira was holding the Rajasuya sacrifice, Shishupal, Krishna was chosen to be the beneficiary of the sacrifice. And Shishupal got up in front of everybody and just insulted Krishna up and down. So finally, Krishna just invoked his Sudarshan chakra and cut his head off in public. So Rukmini, under no circumstances, wanted to marry Shishupal. But it was arranged. It was already arranged. But she had already fallen in love with Krishna just by hearing about him, which is a very important point. Because I read it the other day. You can read it for yourselves. The last paragraph of the purport of chapter 8, verse 28, the last verse of the 8th chapter, wherein Srila Prabhupada explains how just by the study of Bhagavad Gita, one can fall in love with Krishna. Or actually, through the study of Bhagavad Gita, one progressively goes through 8 stages of development of transcendental consciousness, which Srila Prabhupada describes he quotes 2 verses from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Rupa Goswami in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita in the 11th verse. The 10th and the 11th verse are very revealing about what we're talking about here, about hearing about Krishna. In the 10th verse, or rather in the 9th verse, Krishna says, Janma kama chami divyam evam yo veti tattvataha chaktva deham puna janma naiti mam iti sorjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Then Vita, Raga, Bhaya, Krodha, Manmaya, Mamupashruta, Bahavo Jnana Tapasa, Putamad Bhavam Agataha. Being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me, and taking refuge in me. Many, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. And the purport, Srila Prabhupada quotes 2 verses from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu from the 1st canto, 4th chapter, verses 15 and 16. in which the science of devotional service is encapsulated in 2 verses. 8 points are made here. Adal Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sango Ta Bhajana Kriya. Tato Nata Nivriti Syat Tato Nishta Ruchis Tataha. Ata Shaktis Tato Bhavas Tata Prema Bhudanchati. Sadhakanam Ayam Premna Pradurbhave Bhavet Kramaha. The translation is, in the beginning, one must have a preliminary desire for self-realization. This will bring one to the stage of trying to associate with persons who are spiritually elevated. In the next stage, one becomes initiated by an elevated spiritual master, and under his instruction, the neophyte devotee begins the process of devotional service. By execution of devotional service, under the guidance of the spiritual master, one becomes free from all material attachment, attains steadiness in self-realization, and acquires a taste for hearing about the absolute personality of Krishna, the absolute personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. This taste leads one further forward to attachment for Krishna, which is matured in bhava, or the preliminary stage of transcendental love of God. Real love for Krishna is called prema, the highest perfectional stage of life. And then Prabhupada wraps up the purport by saying, in the prema stage, there is constant engagement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So, by the slow process of devotional service, under the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master, one can attain the highest stage, that is, being freed from all material attachment, from the fearfulness of one's individual spiritual personality, and from the frustration and anger that result from void philosophy. Then one can ultimately attain to the abode of the Supreme Lord. So there are 8 points being made here. So we'll move on, actually, and we'll reread that last paragraph now in the light of this, because what Srila Prabhupada does is tracks these 2 verses and the 8 points that are being made here in his analysis of the final analysis of this 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which is a very powerful verse as well. Ah. Vedeshu yagyashu tapasu chaiva danishu yat punya palam pradishtam adyeti tat sarvam idam viditva yogi param stanam upayiti chadya. A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all these, and at the end, he reaches the supreme eternal abode. So in this last paragraph, Srila Prabhupada says the following. One who has a little faith in Bhagavad Gita should learn Bhagavad Gita from a devotee. Adal Shraddha. Shraddha means faith. Because in the beginning of the 4th chapter, it is stated clearly that Bhagavad Gita can be understood only by a devotee. No one else can perfectly understand the purpose of Bhagavad Gita. One should therefore learn Bhagavad Gita from a devotee of Krishna, not from mental speculators. This is a sign of faith. When one searches for a devotee, adho shraddha, sadhu sangha, and finally gets a devotee's association, one actually begins to study and understand Bhagavad Gita. This is bhajana kriya. By advancement in the association of the devotee, one is placed in devotional service. That is also part and parcel of bhajana kriya. And this service dispels all one's misgivings about Krishna or God, and Krishna's activities, form, pastimes, name, and other features. That's anatta nivritti. After these misgivings have been perfectly cleared away, one becomes fixed in one's study. That's nishtha. Then one relishes the study of Bhagavad Gita and attains the state of feeling always Krishna conscious. That is ruchi. Then one relishes. In the advanced stage, one falls completely in love with Krishna. That's bhava and then prema. So there are the 8 points of those 2 verses. In the advanced stage, one falls completely in love with Krishna. What is the advanced stage? The advanced stage is of studying Bhagavad Gita. From this one book, just by studying Bhagavad Gita as it is, you will fall in love with Krishna. All these other things will occur, and you will fall in love with Krishna. Then, this highest perfectional stage of life enables the devotee to be transferred to Krishna's abode in the spiritual sky, Goloka Vrindavan, where the devotee becomes eternally happy. Om Tat Sat. So this all is centered around the fundamental process of hearing. But devotional service begins. There are 9 processes of devotional service. And those processes begin with, and in fact end with, hearing about Krishna. I'm just recollecting of how when Srila Prabhupada became completely incapacitated, couldn't do anything for himself anymore, was bedridden. But even before he was bedridden, he could sit up still. But finally, he was just lying down. And he began hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from Canto 1, verse 1. That was his, apart from any other activities of, still he was giving darshan to devotees, and he was also dictating purports to the 10th canto, the 14th chapter of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So it begins with hearing and chanting, and Srila Prabhupada demonstrated that it should end with chanting and hearing. But here we're hearing about how Rukmini fell in love with Krishna just by hearing about him. So there's the proof. It was very significant that Krishna's pastimes of Vrindavan were all based upon a village life, everybody knowing everybody and all the children knowing each other and so on. But here, in his youthful pastimes out of Vrindavan in Dwarka, it's that Rukmini hears about him. Krishna suddenly kind of bursts on the scene. We read how like I said when I was here last time, it was this beginning that Akrura was arriving in Vrindavan to bring Krishna to Mathura. So he leaves Vrindavan. Everything is this beautiful little idyllic situation. Of course, the demons are coming and Krishna's killing them. But it's Krishna's childhood pastimes being enacted in Braja. But then suddenly it changes. Krishna becomes a youth, and Akrura is sent to bring him to Mathura, and then he becomes a prince and a king. Whereas before he was just a coward. So a different chapter opens up here, it extends now from this point where he mops up things around. He kills Kamsa, mops up things around Mathura, gets Kali Yavana killed, and then deals over and over again, as it says here, that beautiful statement in the purport about Jarasandha, when Krishna and Arjuna are jumping down from the mountain. It says here, they must have been enjoying themselves, eagerly fleeing from the somewhat ridiculous king, Jarasandha, racing up a mountain, jumping off, and totally befuddling the constantly failing demon, who somehow or other never lost confidence in himself. So these are the adult pastimes of the Lord, and he establishes Dwarka. That's the other point. Is that, and we were reading about that in this dealing with the Kali Yavana, that Dwarka's inland, or rather Mathura's inland, near Vrindavan, just south of Delhi. But Dwarka's on the coast of what's now called Gujarat, a long way away. And Krishna built this amazing city within the ocean. So he's getting all that set up, and he's setting himself up as a king. And this is a very rude awakening for the kings of the area, for the kings of the world, because everybody suddenly gets an awareness that here is somebody nobody can beat. Nobody can handle this Krishna. And so many of them are demons. Krishna book begins with the statement, once the world was overburdened by the unnecessary military arrangements of various kings who were actually demons, but were posing as the royal order, which is all part of the execution of a strategy that the demons worked out after they had a humiliating defeat from the demigods. And that defeat is the one that's described in the 8th canto, where the ocean of milk is churned, and finally the pot the elixir of immortality comes out. Dhanvantari emerges with that. And then there's the pastime of Mohini Murti appearing and cheating the demons out of that. And it was supposed to be a big kind of truce, kind of armistice, ceasefire between the demons and the demigods, but it didn't quite work out that way, and they lost out completely. That's the story in which uh, who's the demon? The what are the planets? Ketu, Rahu. Rahu's there, and he actually gets a mouthful of the. He masquerades as a demigod, and he gets a mouthful of the nectar, but Mohini Murti, it's Krishna. So she cuts his head off, and his head becomes the planet of Rahu. Anyway, so that's so many wonderful stories, but what had happened as a result of that is that they worked out a strategy. The demons worked out a strategy to take birth in the families of the rulers of the earth. Jarasandha is one of them. I can't remember who Jarasandha is from that 8th canto story. But Jarasandha is one of the major demons. Oh, and I remember his capital was in what is now called Bihar. Magadha is Bihar state. So he was situated over there, and he kept bringing his armies over. But he was also present, along with Shishupal, at what was supposed to be the ceremony in which Rukmini was given to Shishupal. But this Krishna showed up, this upstart Krishna. Where did he come from? Everybody, and then word got out, well, he grew up in Vrindavan. He was a cowherd boy in Vrindavan. So the proud Kshatriyas were always making out the case, well, he's not really a Kshatriya, is he? He's not really a Kshatriya. He's the son of Vaishyas. He's not a Kshatriya. But nobody could argue with him because nobody could defeat him. So suddenly Krishna shows up. And Rukmini was actually getting, well, we don't want to steal the story completely because it unfolds from here on. But Rukmini was getting a little worried because she'd sent a Brahmin to Krishna with a very confidential letter, actually asking him, please come and take me. Which is quite an unprecedented thing, even for a princess to do. But she did it, and she sent this letter to Krishna. And Krishna, it was the night before, and Krishna had to get there overnight. So he immediately left. He traveled overnight, and he arrived there. And it's described he took her away just like a lion steals something away from jackals. Just walked in and and he did it in such a with real swagger. He really like put it out there. Just, well, what are you guys going to do about this? Here I am. Because when he came in on his chariot, they were all there. He came in on his chariot, just pulled right up to where she was standing, just took her in his arm, put her on the chariot, and then just started to slowly go away. It's not like he raced in, grabbed her to get away as quick as he could. He just like hung it out, said, okay, I've got her now. What are you going to do? And they just all, like, as they say, had a total conniption that this was outrageous and unheard of. But Rukmini was in ecstasy. Rukmini was in ecstasy. She'd never seen Krishna before. but she fell in love with him just by hearing about it. There was a popular song going around a few years ago called I Loved You Before I Met You. I loved you before I met you. I mean, every girl has like an image, an idea of her ideal husband, and she loves that image. Of course, there's no man alive can ever live up to that image. No, it's not possible because it's an illusion. But Rukmini was like, in that sense, she's a direct expansion, as it says here. Rukmini is a direct expansion of the eternal goddess of fortune. So she's Radharani in another leader, a different leader. But Krishna appears in human society and brings his whole entire entourage with him, and has the demigods descend to play roles as the Yadu dynasty. And on one level, he behaves like an ordinary human being, and so do the girls. So do the Radharani and the gopis and Rukmini and all of the queens, who are all goddesses of fortune. They all externally are behaving as normal human beings. So Rukmini she's an innocent girl, and she hears about Krishna, and she hears a description of Krishna, and she holds that image in her mind, and she falls in love with him. And unlike ordinary girls who can never quite meet the right person to match that image that they carry, Krishna matches the image completely. Krishna appears and he's everything and more than she ever imagined. And we read later on, as the stories unfold, how that love for Krishna just grows and grows and grows. There's a beautiful description later of how Krishna's teasing her, saying, you know, I'm not a very good man. I'm not a worthy husband for you. Perhaps you should find someone else. And she faints. She thinks, oh, he's going to leave me. And she faints. She completely faints away. She's so in love with Krishna. And Krishna reciprocates with her. This is the other very important point to take away here, that Krishna reciprocates with the devotee. This is very, very important to understand, because Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyanta Sto Hyabadrani Vidu Noti Surit Satam. We, as conditioned souls, we have contaminated consciousness. And the only way that consciousness can be purified, Prabhupada explains many, many places, but very nicely in the purport to the 22nd verse of the 13th chapter. He says, because he describes the situation perfectly of the conditioned soul. And he says, how one is put into such different bodies is explained here. It is due to association with the different modes of nature. One has to rise, therefore, above the three material modes and become situated in the transcendental position. That is called Krishna consciousness. That's another embedded verse. Yes? You know that verse?
Is it 14th chapter?
No, 245. The one about Vishaya, Traigunya Vishaya Veda, Nistraigunya Bhavajuna. The Vedas deal mainly with the three modes of material nature. One must rise, become transcendental to these three modes. That is called Krishna consciousness. Now here, this is our situation. Unless one is situated in Krishna consciousness, his material consciousness will oblige him to transfer from one body to another because he has material desires since time immemorial. But he has to change that conception. This is probably one of the most important sentences in all of Prabhupada's books. That change can be effected only by hearing from authoritative sources. Only by hearing from authoritative sources. That change in our consciousness from being contaminated and completely imbued with material desire. The only way that can be changed is by exposure to transcendental sound vibration delivered authoritatively. Authoritatively means authorized. You may hear Krishna's stories about Krishna from an academic. Actually, there are many academics who study the Srimad Bhagavatam and write, what do they say? Read books, repeat quotations, and draw conclusions on the wall about what it's all about. But they never get it. They never get the understanding of who Krishna actually is. That understanding can only be delivered from the lotus lips of a pure devotee of the Lord. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection, fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. And it's all based on hearing. Therefore, Shrinvatam Swa Katha Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana. Shravan Kirtan, hearing and chanting about the transcendental glories of the Lord. Shrinvatam Swa Katha Krishna, this katha of Krishna, these stories of Krishna, these instructions given by Krishna. Shrinvatam Swa Katha Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana, Hridyantasto Hyabadrani Vidunoti Suritsatam. Hridyantasto Hyabadrani, our hearts which are full of abhadra. Abhadra means, Bhadra means auspicious, abhadra means inauspicious. Inauspicious things, material desires are inauspicious for the living being because they lead to further and further and further entanglement in the repetition of birth, death, disease, and old age, which Krishna categorically describes as being dukkha, evil. Dukkha means misery, dukkha means evil. There are different shades of meaning, obviously. We know that, different shades of meaning of any word in any language. So dukkha in this instance, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Doshanudasha. One must see the misery as evil, an evil thing that we actually bring down upon ourselves. We bring down upon ourselves because we enter the material world as an act of will, as an act of our free will. Krishna doesn't want this. Krishna doesn't want us to break up with him, break up our relationship with him. Because as we were saying, All the relationships with Krishna are relationships of love. They're based on and based in and grow out of and nurture love. So everyone's a lover of Krishna. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sajjakabo Noi Shravanadi Sudachita Karaye Udoy. It's a beautiful verse. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema, love for Krishna, is eternally established in the existence, in the very being of every living entity. We are all eternal living beings, and we are all therefore eternal lovers of Krishna. There's one lecture with Prabhupada. He says, actually, we all love Krishna. Everyone loves Krishna. I love Krishna. You love Krishna. Everyone loves Krishna. And he says, and he gives the reason why. And he says, because say you love someone and they die, you don't keep the body. You can't keep the body. I remember way back in 2001, there was a tsunami. There was an undersea earthquake somewhere in the eastern part of the Indian Ocean that sent out tsunamis all the way to Sri Lanka and the coast of India, and all the way across into Indonesia. And there was a big, because Indonesia is just north of Australia. So there was a big campaign just after that because they needed 250,000 coffins very quickly because there were dead bodies lying everywhere. And they were all starting to rot. So you don't keep the body. You can't keep the body. Because it starts to stink. And you don't want to smell dead bodies. The stench of dead bodies is you retch. I mean, one time I was on a rickshaw on the outskirts of Delhi, and we came riding along, and I started to smell something. Oh. And then I saw up ahead there was a big bullock cart that had bodies of dead cows on it that had died drowning in the river. And I had to just cover my mouth because I started to retch. So it's not the body that you love. It's the soul within the body that you love. Because once the soul's gone, the body, no, it's disgusting. Nobody wants it. Nobody loves a dead body. Of course, there are people who are so perverted that they do love dead bodies. But that's definitely not the majority of people. That's, we talk about minorities. That's probably one of the smallest minorities amongst human beings is necromancers. He says, you love the soul. And then he says, but why do you love the soul? He says, because the soul is part and parcel of Krishna. So you love Krishna. We all love Krishna. It's not something which has to be sajjakabo, which has to be implanted within us. It's something which has to be revived within us. And it's very interesting in that regard, too, that it's done through hearing. Because if you're asleep, you set the alarm so that the sound will wake you up. You don't ask somebody, look, come in at 3 o'clock with a little placard saying, wake up. You hear something. We come out of a slumbering state or a hypnotic state. The hypnotist says, he puts you in your trance and says you're very deeply asleep now. And they say yes. And he says, well, when I click my fingers, you'll wake up. So sound is so important in so many ways. Everything is shaped. Consciousness is shaped by sound. What we hear, well, we're speaking English because that's what we heard. Just because you say you're Chinese, just because you're Chinese, it doesn't mean you're automatically going to speak Mandarin, because if somebody adopts you as a baby and brings you to England, brings you up in England, you're going to speak English because that's what you hear. So, and that shapes your consciousness. I am this, I am the other, all why? Because somebody told me I am. So Krishna comes along and tells us, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. And we have to keep hearing this. We have to keep hearing this because our consciousness is contaminated. And we have to hear this knowledge from authoritative sources. Why? Because it carries a potency. Like I'm saying, academics may read Krishna stories and talk about them, but there's no potency in what they say because they don't know and or they don't accept who Krishna is. Krishna's just another interesting figure from Hindu mythology. They don't understand. He's the supreme personality, the supreme being, not just a Hindu god, a Hindu mythological god, but he is the supreme absolute truth from which everything emanates, including us. We are emanations of Krishna, part and parcel of Krishna. And Nityasiddha, Krishna Prema. This love for Krishna is eternally established within our very being. But we have become contaminated, and we've forgotten all of this. But we wanted it, and Krishna satisfied our desire. We wanted to forget Krishna. Like I say, if you're in a loving relationship and it breaks up, you don't necessarily usually. Sometimes they say people get into relationships on the rebound, and those relationships usually don't last. But if there's a breakup, you need some time to get over it in order to enter another relationship of the same nature. We just wanted out, and we wanted to forget it, just like that. We wanted to do that because that's what leaving the spiritual world and coming to the material world entails. But the problem with that, Srila Prabhupada explains this very nicely. I think it's chapter 15 of the first canto, the departure of Lord Krishna. The first half of the chapter, I think I talked about this last time I was here, that the first half of the chapter is Yudhishthira observing all kinds of inauspicious signs, and the second half of the chapter is Arjuna arrives back in a totally devastated state of consciousness, and Yudhishthira begins asking him, why are you like this? And he asks about the Yadu dynasty, he asks about King Ugrasena, he asks about so many situations of their life and relationships of their life, that if those people weren't around anymore, it would be very, very a cause of great lamentation. And he finally says, I think it is because you've lost your dearmost friend, and I am feeling the same. And Prabhupada gives a fantastic lecture about that, where he talks about love. And he says how love, the heart is for love. And then he gives an analysis of what the breakup with Krishna entails. And it entails what I'm talking about. It entails forgetting Krishna. And then he says, but as soon as you forget, because Nityasiddha Krishna Prema, Satya Kabul, because we exist to love Krishna, then as soon as you forget Krishna, you start missing him. Well, you start missing, but you've forgotten what you're missing. You don't know what it is that you're missing, but you feel an emptiness, a need for love. So then, by that time, we are in the association, as it says in this purport. How we are put into these conditions of material life is explained here. It is due to association with the different modes of nature. And this is the fall down. We fall through this association with the modes of material nature. We fall under the influence of the modes of material nature. And that influence is complete. Devi Yesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratyaya. You can't get out from under that influence. And so you then, Janma Mrityu Jarajadi, and as the translation of this verse explains, the living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus, he meets with good and evil among various species. And this is perpetual. Once this process is started, there's no stopping it by any material means. There's no way. So there must be an intervention from the Lord. And that's what all this is. It's an intervention from the Lord so that we can hear about him. We can hear about him and his qualities and his pastimes. And just like Rukmini, we can fall in love with him. That's the whole purpose of it. There's a beautiful verse in the Ancha-lila of the Ancha-lila of the Srimad Chaitanya Charitamrita, where the description is given of how Lord Chaitanya at night would sit on the floor of his little room in Jagannath Puri, and Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Roy would quote select verses from the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, very specifically from the stories of the Rasa Lila, Krishna's intimate dancing relationship with the gopis. And the verse explains that they would do that, and Lord Chaitanya would sit on the floor and cry, hear about these things and cry. And Prabhupada gives a lecture on that verse, and he says, so Lord Chaitanya is sitting on the floor, hearing about Krishna and crying. He says, so this is our process. You come, you sit on the floor, and you hear about Krishna, and you cry. Because Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Vidyantasto Yabhadrani Vidu Noti Surit Satam. Krishna is Surit. He's within our hearts. Surit means closest to the heart. And the verse says, he cleanses away the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the truthful devotee who relishes hearing his messages, who has developed a taste for hearing his messages, which in themselves are virtuous when properly heard and chanted. And properly heard and chanted doesn't mean in terms of nyaya, the correct pronunciation of everything and the correct meter of everything. Well, that's wonderful, although that's wonderful. When you hear the correct pronunciation and the correct meter of the verses, it's so captivating to the ear and the heart. But the Prabhupada explains that the real meaning of that is it's actually found in the phrase truthful devotee, because one will never become purified unless one actually accepts that one is contaminated. And we learn that we are contaminated by hearing the philosophy of the nature of the absolute truth. We understand that our problem is that through association with the three modes of material nature, in our forgetfulness of Krishna, we've developed a contaminated conception of ourselves, contaminated by the three modes of material nature, contaminated by the false ego. We think ourselves to be products of the material world. We think ourselves to be these bodies and these minds in which we carry the conception of who we think we are. So it says here that conception has to be changed. That change can be affected only by hearing from authoritative sources. There's a potency in these stories. I had a very interesting experience a few years ago where I was being blasphemed, actually. We'll say it was blasphemy. And it was false. It was totally false what the person was saying about me. But he was going everywhere, all over the society. He went to Mayapur festival. He was telling people, Bhagavat Ashraya is this, he's that, he's the other. He was telling anybody who'd listen to him. So I was talking to Vaisheshika Prabhu about it. I said, this is really bothering me now. I mean, at first it was silly, but now it's really starting to upset me. And what should I do? He said, read the story about the shaman Takajun, which, what's his name?
Satyajit.
Huh?
Satyajit.
Satyajit. This character, Satyajit, he was one of the kings living in Dwarka. And he was actually envious of Krishna, and he was a worshipper of the sun god. And the sun god gave him the Shamantaka jewel. And the story goes that his brother stole it from him and ran off into the forest and was killed by a lion. And then Jambavan came along and found the Shamantaka jewel and took it into his cave. But Satyajit started putting around the rumor that Krishna had stolen. And everybody was believing him. So Vaisheshika Prabhu said, just read that story. That'll deal with it all. And it did. I read the story a few times. The whole thing just evaporated away. The devotee came and apologized to me. And that was that. So I got a real realization out of that. These stories are very potent. They have a very potent effect on our consciousness. All we have to do is become submissive. Submissive oral reception. Accept it. accepted that these are not mythological stories. These are not fictions. These are histories. These are real stories. These things happened on planet Earth, and they've been recorded for us to hear. And the hearing of these things brings a reciprocation from the Lord, because Krishna is the witness to everything. Everything we do and think and say is witnessed by Krishna. And he reciprocates. Very kind. Krishna, Prabhupada says it so often, Krishna is so kind. He's so kind. He'll give you whatever you want. Whatever you want, he'll give it to you. And he knows what you want. He knows what you want. Better than you do. Better than you know yourself, Krishna knows you. And he knows what you want. And so, as these verses, Ado Shraddha, Prabhupada translates there must be a preliminary desire for self-realization. We don't know what that means. We're not thinking, oh yes, I want to become self-realized. It's not quite like that. But we want to know the truth. What is the truth of existence? Why does anything exist? Why do I exist? What's the purpose of my existence? So this is observed by Krishna. He sees this. And so he sees, well, when these questions become very serious and very consistent, and we can't, like, whatever happens, we can't stop thinking about these things. And we really want to know. And we not really want to know. It gets to the point where I need to know. Because actually, we all live on a need to know basis. There's the saying, not even Vishnu in Vaikuntha knows of the activities of Braja. Confidentiality is a very important thing to understand, because at the core of existence is confidentiality. We're living in the most confidential knowledge. We're living amidst and developing an understanding of the most confidential knowledge. So this has all come about because Krishna has reciprocated with us. We had a desire, we had a need to know. So now it is being revealed to us. And it's being revealed through sound vibration, through transcendental sound vibrations. We saw the word effect. There are several words with that root of effect. You think about it. There's perfect, defect, affect, effect, refect. I mean, at university, I don't know if they still do, but when I went to university, the canteen where you went for lunch was called the refectory. So if you look at the dictionary of etymology, it comes from the Latin facere. It's to make or to do. So perfect means to completely do or to completely make something complete. Whereas defect, so let's do that. Defect is to to want or lack something. Create a situation where there's a wanting or a lacking of something. So material sound is defective because no matter what you hear, there's still something missing. You're never satisfied by what you hear about. You have to keep on hearing, and we have to hear. Hearing, remembering, glorifying, and worshiping are 4 activities that Prabhupada explains in the purport to 1.2.14. These are common activities in human society. And he said, indeed, you can't live without them. You have to be hearing about something. You have to be remembering something. You have to be glorifying something. And you have to be worshiping something. You have to. And you think about it. When you meet somebody, you meet your friends, you haven't seen them for a while. Pretty much one of the first things that people say, once all the greetings and everything is settled down, they say, did you hear about? And they'll start talking about a mutual friend, what happened to a mutual friend. Did you hear about this? Did you hear about that? So if we don't hear about, remember, worship and glorify and worship Krishna, the list is endless of the things that we will hear about, remember, glorify, and worship. But they're all going to create a defective condition in our consciousness. There's always something, what they've got, there's something I'm not getting. So we have to hear sound which is perfective. And that can be effected only by hearing. That can be placed, that can be done, that can be made to happen only by hearing from authoritative sources. And if we submit to that, then gradually, we lose all desire for anything material. And we only want to be with Krishna, to hear about it. And that's the other astounding thing that we come to realize as time goes by, that by hearing about Krishna is being with Krishna. So Rukmini heard about Krishna and she only wanted to be with Krishna. So Krishna very, very graciously reciprocated with her desire and came and took her away in just the way she wanted. She wanted Krishna to swoop in, pick her up, and take her away. And in the process of doing it, he beat the daylights out of all these other princes, all of whom were actually demons. Rukmi was going to put her in the hands of a demon. Krishna saved her from that and gave her a life beyond her wildest dreams. And this is what happens. We're having lives beyond our wildest dreams simply by being with Krishna, simply by being a part of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan Leelas. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Same as always, for the devotees tuning in on Zoom, if you have anything to ask or to share, then please raise a hand. In the first instance, we go. Hannah, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hannah. Nice to see you.
Likewise, it was nice to hear from you again. I just had a question. In the beginning, you mentioned how Jay and Vijay were cursed, and then they had 2 options to choose between 3 lives as demons or 7 lives as devotees. So I think from what I've heard before, they chose 3 lives as demons so that they could go back to the spiritual world quicker. But then I was just wondering why not 7 lives as devotees, because you would still be engaged in devotional service and thinking about Krishna. So you might still be in that zone of the spiritual world.
Well, purely and simple, it was like you said, that 3 is less than 7. I mean, so get back as quick as they can. But also, it was the will of the Lord for him to have the pastimes that he had with them of killing them. Ultimately, everything is acting, moving under the supreme desire of Krishna. This consciousness is Krishna consciousness. That's practically the last thing Srila Prabhupada dictated for his Bhagavatam purports. You can see it in the movie Your Ever Well-Wisher. Prabhupada's lying there and Jayadvaita Swami's holding the microphone right there. And Prabhupada says, everything is acting, moving under the supreme desire of Krishna. This consciousness is Krishna consciousness. So ultimately, it was Krishna's desire that would be what they chose. But at the same time, all of us, as part and parcel of Krishna, have agency, and they chose that because they didn't want to have to be hanging around in the material world, taking birth. You see, that's one thing that you have to, the idea of taking birth to a resident of Vaikuntha is anathema. What? You want me to go through that? Well, we say, oh yeah, take birth, yeah. I wouldn't mind taking birth again. So that's all I got on that.
That makes sense.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Who's
That's Madeira.
Madeira?
Hare
Hi.
Krishna. Thank you for a lovely class. It was really amazing. I love hearing your enthusiasm for the Bhagavad Gita. It's really inspiring. And I wish that I could one day have a fraction of that and develop love for Krishna. I have a question on, you said about Rukmini is Radharani. I just find this a little bit confusing because just a few chapters ago, we were reading about the Rasa dance when Radharani is there. And now Radharani is Rukmini. So I just find this a little bit, I mean, is there a backstory to Rukmini being Radharani? Or how are we to understand?
Jiva Goswami, Prabhupada says here, Jiva Goswami says that the beautiful Rukmini is a direct expansion of the eternal goddess of fortune. The eternal goddess of fortune is an expansion of Radharani. All the goddesses of fortune are expansions of Radharani. So, and further down in the purport, where does it, Prabhupada says it? Where are we? No, I can't. In the spiritual world, all the female lovers are goddesses of fortune, and the male lover is the supreme personality of Godhead. But all of the goddesses of fortune are expansions of Radharani. So, where's the difficulty in understanding that? What is your difficulty? What was your difficulty in understanding?
Yeah, that's starting to make a bit more sense now. That all, all goddesses of fortune are Radharani. Yeah. Okay.
Expansions of Radharani. But that, it's easy to say all of this, but it's inconceivable, isn't it? I mean, it's inconceivable. But this is the way of it. And we say Radha and Krishna are one. Radharani is Krishna's Hladini potency. So in one sense, therefore, Radharani is Krishna. And if you analyze in that sense, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and everything emanates from him. So in one sense, there's only one entity, infinitely expanded in infinitely variegated ways for the purposes of pastime. Again, that's all inconceivable to me, but I take it. I'll take that. Any other questions? Yeah.
You said how whatever you ask for Krishna, will whatever you want, Krishna will grant you whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I also heard that Krishna won't give you something unless if it's gonna hold back.
Well, that's a special privilege that he offers. That's a special privilege that he offers to devotees.
Yeah.
That's not for everybody. That's specifically for devotees.
But you have to be like a certain advancement.
No, any devotee.
Any devotee.
Any devotee. Krishna is equal to all the devotees in that regard. If something's not good for you and you want it, then he won't let you have it.
It doesn't depend like on sincerity. Like if I was just
Don't get hung up on the sincerity thing. You wouldn't be here if you weren't sincere. Don't compare yourself to, oh, he's more sincere than me. Just be yourself. Just be sincere. That's Prabhupada was asked about. How do you be sincere? He said, be sincere. It's not like, oh, I'm more sincere. I'm more sincere than you. That gets into all kinds of mundane stuff. You know, I'm more advanced than you. That can be a real political tool. Just be yourself and be sincere. And Krishna will protect you.
yeah.
Krishna says, in all activities, just depend on me. And who's he saying that to? The sincere devotees? The insincere devotees? The half-sincere devotees? He's saying it to everyone. Just depend on me. That's all. And I will protect you. Guaranteed. You got it?
Yeah.
Krishna loves all the devotees. Krishna loves everyone. Oh, can you pass me the first canto, please? First canto, 11th chapter is Krishna's entrance into Dwarka after he comes back from chapter 10. Chapter 10 is when he leaves Hastinapur, and chapter 11 is when he arrives in Dwarka. Lord Krishna's entrance into Dwarka. Chapter 10 is departure of Lord Krishna for Dwarka, which follows 8 and 9, interestingly enough, 8, 9, 10, and 11. 8 is the prayers by Queen Kunti as he's leaving, and 9 is such underrated chapter of the passing of Bhishma. But then chapter 10, he leaves Dwarka, at least for Dwarka, and in chapter 11, he enters into Dwarka. And there's a description of all the people coming to greet him. Actually, this is a really nice way to end this. On hearing that the most dear Krishna was approaching Dwarka Dham, magnanimous Vasudeva, Akrura, Ugrasena, Balaram, the superhumanly powerful, Pradyumna, Charodeshna, and Shamba, the son of Jambavati, all extremely happy, abandoned resting, sitting, and dining. And then it goes on. They hastened towards the Lord on chariots with Brahmins bearing flowers. Before them were elephants, emblems of good fortune. Conch shells and bugles were sounded, and Vedic hymns were chanted. Thus they offered their respects, which were saturated with affection. At the same time, many hundreds of well-known prostitutes began to proceed on various vehicles. Many hundreds of well-known prostitutes in Dwarka. Here they are. They were all very eager to meet the Lord, and their beautiful faces were decorated with dazzling earrings, which enhanced the beauty of their foreheads. Expert dramatists, artists, dancers, singers, historians, genealogists, and learned speakers all gave their respective contributions, being inspired by the superhuman pastimes of the Lord. Thus they all proceeded on and on. Now, Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, approached them and offered due honor and respect to each and every one of the friends, relatives, citizens, and all others who came to receive and welcome him. The Almighty Lord greeted everyone present by bowing his head, exchanging greetings, embracing, shaking hands, looking and smiling, giving assurances and awarding benedictions, even to the lowest in rank. Purport, short one of these dynamite purports. To receive the Lord Sri Krishna, there were all grades of population, beginning from Vasudeva, Ugrasena, and Gargamuni, the father, grandfather, and teacher, down to the prostitutes and chandalas, who are accustomed to eat dogs, in Dwarka, while Krishna was there. And every one of them was properly greeted by the Lord in terms of rank and position. As pure living entities, all are the separated parts and parcels of the Lord, and thus no one is alien by his eternal relation. His meaning Krishna's. No one's alien. Krishna knows who you are. Such pure living entities are graded differently in terms of contamination of the modes of material nature, but the Lord is equally affectionate to all his parts and parcels, despite material gradation. He descends only to recall these materialistic living beings back to his kingdom, and the intelligent persons take advantage of this facility offered by the personality of Godhead to all living beings. No one is rejected by the Lord from the kingdom of God, and it remains with the living being to accept this or not. Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
It's a good question. Take the answer seriously. And be aware that Krishna is fully aware of you. And he wants the best for you. And he's very happy that you've become a devotee. So don't go away. Just be sincere instead, and everything will come. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpatrubhyascha kripasindobheva patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
His Grace Bhagavat Shakuru ki jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
So thank you for joining us on Zoom as always. We shall have, Krishna willing, one more class tomorrow morning for Bhagavat Ashraya and Sadhana Mangala Prabhu's leave us. So not to be missed tomorrow. In the meantime, we wish you a very happy and peaceful Krishna conscious day. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimati Tulsi Devi ki jai. Shishi Prahlad Singha ki jai. Shishi Nitai Gaur Sundar ki jai. Vaishnav Sangha, Vaishnav Seva ki jai. Nitai Gaura Pramanande. Hare Krishna. We'll see you tomorrow.
Hare Krishna.